Hello and welcome to Insight Live, the IT Experts Take. My name is Jason Rader. I'm Insight's Chief Information Security Officer and your host for today. Today's show, we're going to get a market pulse on where AI is with Insight and NVIDIA. Speaking of NVIDIA, we'll welcome our special guest today, Matt Hull, who is VP of Global AI Solutions from NVIDIA. Welcome, Matt.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
And we got our regulars, Juan Orlandini, CTO of North America, and Carm Taglienti, who is Senior Architect and Distinguished Engineer with me here at Insight. Welcome, you two.
Hey, hello. How are you? Thanks for having us.
I'm glad to have you. So I'm pretty hyped about today's show. Anytime we start talking about AI and then hype around AI, that's going to be a fun conversation. We got some expertise from NVIDIA with us to help us out. I think since I said hype, let's talk about hype. Like, is this still hype, or has enough of a material showing of power from what AI has given us? And I know this is more than ChatGPT. So if you're tuned in for ChatGPT, this is probably the only time we're going to say it. But it's more than ChatGPT. Has it delivered? I guess let's start there. Are you buying into this AI thing, guys?
I'll take the first stab at it, and then Matt, I'd love to hear your comments on it.
Absolutely.
So, in general, we have crossed a threshold where we actually, through these generative AI models, start to get some really meaningful input. And actually, Jensen, CEO and founder of NVIDIA, said it best. It is one of the most transformative tools that we will have gotten in a generation, maybe in our lifetimes. And we are seeing it across the board, and everything from agents that are interacting with clients to now some of the newer models are actually able to pass ACT and SAT and even some medical tests. So where we've seen examples where people are getting diagnosis in 20 minutes from these things that would have taken an expert days to process. So yeah, we've crossed the threshold, but what I don't know that we have crossed the threshold on is understanding how to best leverage this tool quite yet. And we're working through that as an industry, as an organization, in partnership with our clients.
Juan, I think you said it very well. AI is real. We at NVIDIA, you guys at Insight, have known that for many years, right? We've been working hard. I've been in NVIDIA for a little over 5 years. And the evolution that's happened over the 5 years that I've been here is just absolutely stunning to watch. It's gone from folks working in back offices doing a little bit of research to AI in production for many different use cases in financial services and healthcare. Across the board, every single industry has use cases. I think the generative AI moment with ChatGPT, and that's the only time I will say it today, as you said, Jason, was really a wake-up call for the rest of society to say, wow, this is real. It was a great wake-up call for a lot of enterprises that haven't started down the AI journey. What we've seen is the first movers of artificial intelligence in the enterprise have really started to realize the benefits and results. And you see all of the peer group, all of the companies in their peer group, their competitors are starting to take notice and going, oh my God, this is real. So I think the ChatGPT, second time I said it, thing was a very cool wake-up call. But I think all of us here knew that AI was real. It's going to take some time to get it fully baked. It's going to take some time to make sure all the regulations and public policies in place and everybody's very comfortable with it. But I don't think it's hype. It's something that's here to stay and will benefit us all greatly.
So let me just add a little bit to that. So it's great points. But I guess I'll be the elder statesman in the room and talk about AI has been around for a long time, right? So, I mean, in the early 90s, I was programming AI models, and we were using it very effectively for a lot of particular use cases. But at the time, we were using special purpose machines to do it and special purpose algorithms. So I think what had happened, was shortly thereafter, I don't think it delivered on the promise. And sort of what Matt was saying and Juan as well, we now have the ability to provide accessibility or easy access to the kind of computing power, the data, and sort of the platforms that are required in order to allow you to be able to do something with it. And, ChatGPT, for example, the biggest part of that is, again, maybe I shouldn't mention it either, but it's the transformer that's really the important part, right? So it can mimic human text, human speech, and or other things like believable images, etc. And it can also understand. So it's the other part of it. So those things have been around in advances in NLP, for example, for a long time, but now it's really practical and usable, and it's really changing the game, as both my colleagues have mentioned. And that's really the inspiration and why it's such a big area right now.
I think you make a great point, Carm, that AI is a big field. AI has been around a long time. If you remember Big Blue, playing chess, really cool. But there's different layers of AI, as you mentioned. There's machine learning, now deep learning. The models are getting bigger, transformer models. If you look at some of these large language models, hundreds of billions of parameters, and you hit the nail on the head. What's happened is we're able to build these very complex neural networks now. We're able to build these transformers because we have compute that wasn't available in the past. We have more data than we've ever had and the ability to curate that data. And we have some great minds that are working to bring it all together. So you're right. AI has been a journey, but this is a very different piece of the journey where the AI is going to write AI. The AI is going to evolve by itself. It's not a supervised type of learning like machine learning in the past.
Right. Fantastic point. And I think, I've been talking about this straight for, a month or two. What's so unique about this, because like every time I have a conversation with somebody, we run to the patent attorneys because we're like, hey, we got to figure this out. There's all of these things that I think we're coming up with because we haven't seen them in the market yet. But it's funny because I'm sure there's 50 other groups having the same conversations because we're doing a lot of things that you would naturally do. So what's kind of really unique about this technology, and I agree with everybody, is it's going to change everything, but it's the democratization. Everybody's got access to this. Well, a large group of people have access to this, where in the past, to your point, Carm, we used to have to go to university to get access to systems that did this, or we'd have to go to a lab, or there'd be specialized gear that was involved in stuff. And now, leveraging cloud technologies and just GPUs that you've got on your own home machine, you could do a lot of cool stuff that just wasn't available. So I think we've kind of hit this brilliant inflection point where just so many things have come together, and it's pretty darn exciting.
Well, there's another analogy that I'm going to steal from Jensen that I like, which is we had an iPhone moment. Yeah. When ChatGPT, and it's my turn to not say it again, right? And when that came out, all of a sudden the world changed, right? Just like when the iPhone got released, everybody knew that phone technology, which had been around for decades at that point, was transformed. You just couldn't change it. Forever. There's a fancy word, and I can't say it right now. And that's the good way to think about it, because there was all these technologies that are around for a very, very long time. But now we've crossed that inflection point where we can actually start using it in radically unique ways. And what those ways are just as open to us as what the iPhone was when it first got released, and then the App Store got first released. We saw an explosion of capabilities and use cases, and then we changed the world with it. And the same thing is going to happen with this. So it's a great way to think about it.
The democratization you guys mentioned, I think, is a very, very important topic. All these generative AI applications that are popping out are very cool, but they're built by very large companies, and they're publishing these as their homegrown stuff that you can buy into 100%. But what companies truly want, if you're a Bloomberg, if you're a United Healthcare, if you're a Ford Automotive, you don't want to just use somebody else's model and plug into it. You can't. So the democratization of being able to deliver the same sort of resources to those enterprise companies so they can build their own tailored models is the opportunity for all of us, right? And that's what we're having the discussion many times a day with CIOs, CTOs, lines of business around. That's cool. And I understand how it's going to benefit Microsoft or Google, but I want to do the same thing. And they're very surprised about how easy it is, because what we've done together to democratize it.
That is brilliant. And I think that is the money for why folks would be tuning into this session, because the thing that must not be named is it got a lot of people excited about it. It's and it proved a lot of proved to a lot of people the capabilities, but we've only just begun to leverage this from a business perspective. And that's where, again, and I'd love to kind of talk about what that platform looks like, because, to a lot of people, that platform is, something that we send messages to somewhere else. But I'd love to talk about, maybe Carmen, you take a shot at kind of explaining what we mean when we're talking about AI platform. And then of course, everybody chime in.
Yeah, so I think when we really think about it, and we've all hit on different topics of it. So when we think about a platform approach to AI, it's hardware, it's software, it's data. So those are the three primary components. If we're going to be able to realize the vision, which is democratization, for example, or even ease of use, it really requires that we have those three major components in order to be able to achieve success. So the hardware, as we talked about, do we have the processing power that allows us to be able to train our models effectively, or even to execute them so that we can serve them? And then can we actually execute them close enough to the user to provide point of presence? Can I run it on my mobile phone? Can I run it on a device? Can I actually do things that are usable so that we can actually create that sort of use case where we change the world? I think that's, Matt, you were talking about that. And if I look at NVIDIA's vision statement, it's basically change every industry, let AI revolutionize what, the way that people think about the things that they do, their work, their play, et cetera. The data is another key component of it, of course. So we're generating data at maybe not exponential rates, but at a large rate. And the ability to store it, access it, process it is the other major component of all of this. And with the distribution and, with the advances in cloud, the ability to store data at a greater level, that also lets us be able to find the data that we need. And I think Matt said this before, we have to be able to curate it, because we're going to have these problems which are associated with, can I even find the data that I need? Or what's the half-life of that data? And is it relevant to the models that I might be using? And then finally, the platform stack. So, and I promise I'll wrap up in a minute, but it's the platform stack, because I'll go on all day. But the platform stack is really just, how do I do this? Like, how do you make it easy for me? If I say no with the use cases that I want to create, do I really have to focus on, I've got to worry about creating my own Bayesian model. Now I got to worry about gradient descent. What's my error return rates? Can I create lift in the model? It's like, and most people hopefully understand what I'm talking about. But if you don't, you'd be like, I really don't want to learn all that stuff. I want to be able to create an application that allows me to be able to analyze my business and then to be able to do something useful with it. And I think that's kind of where we're going. And that word that we don't want to say is providing that general purpose capability, which allows us to be able to take advantage of those other two characteristics of the platform. So I think, as we move forward, the easier we can make those three things sort of synergize, the more effectiveness we'll have and the more ease of use and democratization we'll see across the board.
So, Karim, I love what you said, but maybe I can reword it in a slightly different way. There's two use cases that you really talked about in there, and you and I have had this conversation many times. How do I use AI, which is a feature for my product or what I'm trying to deliver to my clients and those things. The other one is, how do I do AI? And that's actually where you have data scientists and data architects and people actually creating new models or tuning models or whatever it is that you're doing. And those are intimately tied, but you don't have to do one in order to do the other. So you can use AI without having to do AI. There's models that you can leverage that are in the cloud. You can get them through NVIDIA, through the NVIDIA partnerships that are out there. There's lots of ways of doing AI or using AI. To do AI, there is platforms that do get involved, and NVIDIA is instrumental in a lot of those and providing both the hardware components, so you get the compute capability that you need in order to do that. But there's also many software layers that actually shepherd your data scientists and even the business line of leaders that are trying to ideate new use cases through that process. And NVIDIA provides that, and they do that in partnership with other providers. including cloud as well as software ISVs that integrate all of those things. And that can be a little complicated, but it's certainly doable. I mean, it's happening all the time. So just separate them, right? Do AI and use AI. Those are good ways of thinking about it.
I love it. Love it. And that's where we want to help folks is the do AI, right? There's plenty of applications out there to allow you to use AI, and that's fantastic. But we want to help enterprises build their own specific AI. If everybody's using the same AI, it's not going to give you the competitive advantage. It's not going to give you the differentiation that you really want. So we've been hard at work on building the platform, and you guys know it better than any other at Insight because you've been side by side with us the whole time. But if you look back a decade, if you take the thesis that AI is compute, data, and math, you could buy a GPU, you can have your data. What do you do from there, right? What do you wrap around that GPU? How do you actually make business outcomes out of it? So we've been on a journey over the past decade here at NVIDIA is to build out that full stack, starting with the chips, the compute, using the GPU. We now have CPUs and data processing units with our networking. And then how do you move the data in and out of that compute? You can't starve the compute. So we started thinking about networking and partnered with Cisco and Arista and Mellanox and wound up purchasing Mellanox, thinking about how you store the data and how do you move it in and out of the storage. So we've worked with all the major storage providers. And then how do you manage the infrastructure? So we have cluster management software, library management for the infrastructure. And then on top of that, what is the platform for orchestration? We've built that stack. On top of that, what are the AI foundational models that you would use as a starting point to build your own AI, to do AI, as Juan said. So we have all of our foundational models that sit on top of that. It couldn't be easier today. I mean, if you look back 10 years, you stare at this GPU, you stare at your hard drive and go, what do I do? Today, with Insight, we can roll in an AI supercomputer in a very affordable fashion within weeks from order. And you have everything you need to get started. It's been a tremendous revolution. And again, the whole idea is we're democratizing it. Every single enterprise out there can do AI. They can do it affordably. They can do it with best in class. To finish up, this is all built on stuff we've done internally in NVIDIA. We have thousands and tens of thousands of GPUs running in our data centers. And we've been experimenting what works, what doesn't work. From the operating system on the infrastructure to the cable links to how do you cable this stuff up and how do you cool it? So we've really perfected this. More than half of NVIDIA is software engineers and data scientists. So if you think about a company that's known as a chip company, we have more software than any other similar company out there. And we've been developing it on this infrastructure. So it's really this harmonious full stack that we've created that we look forward to bringing out to every enterprise out there.
You know, Matt, one of the things that you guys have done too is what you described as buying a supercomputer. And that might not be the best entry point for somebody that's actually just starting their journey, right? Or just building out their AI center of excellence. And if you're not familiar with that, Matt and I co-wrote a paper that you can download from our websites. And there's a gentler introduction to it is the way I'd like to describe it. You guys were fantastic in co-creating with the hyperscalers, and it's the AI supercloud, right? And the NVIDIA supercloud, where you can leverage all of these technologies on a as needed basis until you grow your use cases enough to where it might make sense for you to then purchase your own rather than renting your own from one of the clouds. And regardless of how you end up doing it, it's the same software stack, which is actually the harder part. And it's just the hardware is taken care of by NVIDIA. The software stack is the hard part, and they've done a fantastic job of doing that.
Well, you know what, the one area that I and listening to you guys talk about it is I immediately think about, and Juan, you brought this point up. If we're talking about democratization, one thing that you really want to be careful of is like, I don't know how much equipment I need. How am I going to estimate how much capacity I need? How do I measure the GPUs? How do I know which kind of models are possible to use? And, you know, going back to my experiences, like I can remember when I used to run a model and it's like, oops, sorry, not enough capacity to run that model, or you're going to be here for 35 days. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, maybe I don't want to do that. But I think elasticity in these environments and really understanding how to understand how much compute I might need or how much capacity I might need to run the algorithm. is going to be really an important part of that. And I think NVIDIA is sort of going there in terms of helping to provide elastic scalability in order to be able to leverage what you need, and then working with the cloud providers to also say, hey, you pay for what you use, we're going to put the same capabilities in the cloud, and then you can actually use these sort of elastic capabilities to make things easier for you. So democratization becomes simpler without large capital expenditures. Clearly there are cases where you probably do want to make those capital expenditures, but there may be cases where I'm not sure what I need. Let me try it out, if you will, and then move from there. So it's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, AI is a big field. There's many different applications of AI. There's many different model sizes, right? So what we're trying to provide is the entire spectrum of solutions. So what I talked about is we built this platform. This platform, we built it as a physical platform. We built it with data center providers, so we can roll this thing into a colo that we've qualified with managed service provider. But there's a lot of times that folks want the elasticity. They want to be able to burst. There's a lot of times where folks don't need to own the infrastructure because they're just doing very small workloads, very small jobs. So as Juan mentioned, we announced at GTC, Jensen's keynote announcement was something called BGX Cloud. So effectively what we've done is we've taken the exact same platform from the infrastructure, reference architecture, all the way up through the orchestration software, and we're now deploying it on our cloud partners. So we're working with 3 of the major cloud providers. We're taking their infrastructure as a service, which is designed in the way that we asked them to, because it's the same platform stack we've developed. We deploy our platform software on top of it, and then we allow customers to access this platform as a service. So now you can have your platform in your data center in a colo, the platform as a service, and then you turn the dial based upon what you need. You do more in the cloud, you do more on-prem, you do it all on-prem, you do it all in the cloud. But with this platform stack-based command platform is the name of the software, it's truly hybrid. So you have a truly hybrid multi-cloud option for doing AI. So that's really cool. Now we think we've really helped to democratize things.
Absolutely.
And I think for those folks watching that thought maybe they were out of this game, you may have just made everybody's heads explode, realizing how not so far behind they are that they can engage this thing relatively quickly. So with that being said, now that everybody's juices are flowing, let's talk about, I'd love to talk about some use cases that, that folks are working on now. And then we'll talk about, hyperbole, like where we could go. But somebody tell me some stuff that we're doing. I mean, obviously I know what I'm doing at Insight, but tell me some cool.
Jason, why don't we talk about that? Because I think it'll be interesting to show how we are actually dog fooding this technology ourselves, right? So you've been intimately tied with our CTO for IT, David McCumber, right? And releasing both a policy so that internal users can have a policy around generative AI, but also our own instance that we've been starting to leverage. So maybe you can talk about that. That'd be great.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Juan. We did not rehearse this, by the way. But it's true. I mean, that's why I'm so excited, because I feel like now every day is like, wow, what else can we do? I mean, it's a really exciting time. But yeah, from a CISO perspective, the thing I cared the most about when just after Thanksgiving, when all the chat GPT came along, was folks trying to work with it and putting private data into this model that is not controlled by us anymore. And so I had to quickly work with our CIO, and we sent out a message to everybody saying, hey, don't use these and include private data, IP, and explain kind of the copyright rules related to stuff that's generated by these things, or at least where we believe, that's going to go. We had to quickly address that. And then, everybody thought we were kind of shutting them down. And no, we absolutely believe generative AI is an important part of the way we will do business and run our business as we move forward. We just want to do it the right way. So we quickly rallied everybody from compliance to audit to legal. We had the powwows, and we put together a policy that I think is very similar to like what a lot of folks' social media policies would look like back in the day. And then we couldn't just say, don't put private stuff out there. Okay, have at it. We wanted to have our own instance, to your point, Juan. And that was critical to us because we believe the value is, and we believe this is just getting started. Training our own models is where the true value is going to come into play for us as a business. But having at least this playground we can play with our own version of GPT-3.5, and we really wanted to just open this up to all just to see what happens. This was an experiment that from our leadership on down. And I mean, literally every meeting, no joke, we come up with some unique thing that saves time. I'm like, would you say this saved you a minute? You know, I even asked those questions because I want to quantify this. If it saved you a minute, well, we have 12,000 people and we have 8 hours in their shift. I mean, if this saved you a minute every time you did that thing that you do, that's quantifiable money savings. And that's just with the literal entry point stuff with this. So yeah, we wrote a power app, we pushed this out, we did all the appropriate things. But I literally think it's just kind of like we've just flipped a switch. We've only just begun to realize the value.
It's Jason, just the passion that you talk about it with is just amazing. It's like, it's a very exciting time, I think, for sure. I think in some cases, there are other cases, which maybe we should talk about. So it's like, I mean, we could talk generative all day. But I think in the general sense, you know, we've been working with customers that are doing things like vision, you know, computer vision, people analytics, deploying hardware out into the field for major retail organizations that require processing power, the GPU, in order to be able to run on the edge, in order to make sure that we have the performance that's required to be able to do the things like, you know, detection or, you know, detection of inventory and fraud. So those are some examples of where this, you know, sort of this infrastructure allows us to be successful with the use of these AI techniques. Another good one is where we used, we're working with a government organization that has to do basically a chatbot program that's not using generative AI, but it's basically the key important part of this is translation to multiple languages. I think there are in excess of 30 different languages within this particular state. So some of it is about the processing power that's required in order to be able to answer specific questions. So the training really does involve things like, how do I understand the question responses that should be made for these particular types of users? And then outside of that, then yeah, maybe we can go to a generative model, which we haven't done yet, but we will. But in general, you know, you can do those kinds of things, but then it's like, what is the computing power that's required in order to be able to do that? And so we can surface it, you know, as an application running on, you know, NVIDIA hardware, which can also do even general purpose HPC, by the way. So GPUs are not just for AI models, it's also for HPC style, you know, massive parallel processing environments. So it's really just sort of this broad based, you know, capability. When I talked about infrastructure, it really is that triad of things that we're describing, and sort of the world's our oyster, if you will, as you start to think about what are the things that you can do with it.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's a strange day when things like computer vision and those things are in the back of your mind, when that's such a cool technology and a brilliant solution.
Right.
Well, you know, that story that briefly touched on, sorry, Matt, this was a really good use case. It was a state agency that was trying to service all of their state. And when they surveyed the state, they had on their website human translated content into some of the major languages, so English, Spanish, and so on. All right, but their population is made up of, as Carm said, 30 other languages that are not that common, where having a human translator would have been prohibitively expensive and also not responsive as content was added to their management or content management system. We worked with them to put in an AI-based system that was tuned specifically for the kinds of questions that the consumers of those state services would consume, plus a model that was tuned to those different languages so that it could, in real time, a person that is answering questions, a human is answering questions, real questions, can have them translated automatically to all of these relatively minor, or that's probably not the right word, lesser populated languages, and be a real good citizen to them, a provider to those citizens. And that was fantastic. And that's the kind of things that if you just think about it and you say, can I? Probably. Let's talk about it, right? This probably is the right answer. So I love that use case.
Use cases are endless. We're seeing it in every single industry. We go to market by industry. The list of industries that we're now serving doesn't even fit on my screen because we have so many industries that we're working with. Everybody's embraced it. But if you think about it from a healthcare perspective, COVID was a huge wake-up call about the power of AI, drug discovery, genomics, cancer research. We're seeing a huge uptick in financial services, fraud detection, trading strategy, customer service, natural language processing. If you look, Bloomberg launched their own version of GPT a couple weeks ago, Bloomberg GPT. So they bought into generative AI in the energy space for industrial inspection, customer service, supply chain optimization, retail. The list goes on. Retail is an interesting one. Actually, all of these are interesting because they highlight something that Carr mentioned, which is that AI is done from the edge all the way back to the public cloud. So you want to train these models in your own data center in DGX Cloud. You want to run these giant models, get them tuned, but then you're going to have use cases. If you're a retailer out at the store, at the cash register, you're going to have use cases if you're doing industrial inspection, at the drone, at the train, whatever you may be doing. So that's one of the key things that we've really focused on here at NVIDIA with Insight. We're not just providing the training, we provide all the models and all of the technology to enable the edge as well. And between the far edge, right, that drone, that telephone pole, that self-driving car, all the way back, we provide the tools and the processes to allow you to do AI core to edge.
Yeah, so one you touched on two that I'm particularly leaning in on. Retail is one of them because the use cases in retail are hugely valuable, and loss prevention is a huge part of their business. And these models can help in loss prevention, both from what I call adversarial loss, where somebody's actually deliberately trying to steal, and accidental loss, which is where, hey, if you have a self-checkout and you scan it the wrong way or it's been coded the wrong way, you get lost from that as well. And these systems are actually able to, through machine vision and other technologies, able to help and maybe even prevent that. But even more importantly, the same systems can be used for worker safety and customer safety, where we can detect falls, we can detect bad actors coming into the store or the location and those kinds of things. And that same worker safety stuff can be done for manufacturing. So we've worked with some clients where they might be in the meat processing or we've done it also for metal reprocessing, where there's some very dangerous tools involved in those crafts. And these machine systems can actually monitor for those and make sure that, hey, we're not introducing an explosive into the machine that processes the metals, or that the knife cuts are being done in a way that are safe to both the workers and also efficient, so that you can run that through that process very efficiently. So the use cases are literally staggering, and they're awesome, and it's yes. So it's a matter of envisioning and thinking a different way, and then taking a look and seeing if we can do it, and how do we go about doing it.
Yeah, and I think just maybe to add to all this, we're talking about a lot of different use cases, but there's so much innovation going on in terms of being able to create products and capability, and things like the platform that we talked about. So NVIDIA, the NVIDIA platform, if you can implement for the platform, or you can access it through the platform, so you can now create this really nice solution model where you're, say, integrating different services or components from other capabilities that maybe were innovated. So like, you don't always have to write your own computer vision model. You don't have to write your own generative AI solution. You're leveraging others, call them services. And hopefully we move to more of an AI service model in the future, but maybe we won't go there quite yet. But in general, it's really just, there's already a lot of great things that are going on in the field that we can take advantage of. And so really the innovation for us is, how do you glue it all together and then have the platform in order to be able to do it? And so, hopefully people listening are not really thinking so much like, oh, great, now I got to learn all about now this new large language model stuff, and I got to be a natural language processing expert, and then I got a computer vision and speech processing. So there's a lot of this is take advantage of sort of the really great stuff that's coming out that is facilitated by these platforms that allow us to be able to take advantage of it.
One thing I'll add on, Carm, and you made great points. The applications are becoming so ubiquitous that across a single organization, there may be 12 different silos that are starting to experiment with AI. Juan mentioned a white paper earlier that he and I co-wrote, but it was about AI centers of excellence. And centers of excellence, probably an overused term, but it's a very important piece of this ecosystem and how enterprises approach it. Conversations that I have quite often now revolve around the fact that you have this shadow AI spurring up within an organization. The marketing organization hired a data scientist and they're doing some AI work. And then the operations team hired a data scientist and they're doing some AI work. And the current thinking within organizations is if you can create a center of excellence, if you can create a model where you have shared resources, compute resources, shared data, shared expertise around data science, it's going to be far better for the organization. So instead of approaching this in a piecemeal way, really looking at the C-suite and say, hey, my AI strategy needs to include the center of excellence, which provides governance and resourcing and the best-in-class tools. And what we're seeing is folks that start to adopt the AI centers of excellence really kick up the output that they're seeing. They attract some of the best talent. And most importantly, costs go down tremendously and their time to results speed up quite a bit. So the center of excellence is something that I think the folks out there listening to this should really think about, learn about. It's very, very important. And it's much easier to start with a coordinated effort versus having to peel it all together later on in the journey.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it made me think about, I was talking to an analyst earlier and she was telling me that we're all using AI anyways. Every organization's using AI. There's so many different applications of it. We may not be aware, but if you're not thinking in that way, then you're probably already behind the 8 ball. So you really need to focus on like, how do I collect my thoughts? Or probably more importantly, which is what we're trying to do. And maybe we just confuse things more, but we're trying to help, the group make sense out of what are all of these things that are happening. And then what's my practical approach? And I think the COE mat is really a great idea, but really the focus should be how do we leverage it to our advantage and understand what's out there so that it can be business value versus, just a little bit of an educational boondoggle, which I know a lot of us like to do that too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and thank you, Jared, for the comment. The center of excellence approach. One of the things that I like about that is when you have a center of excellence where all of that work is being coalesced into, is that you get cross-domain synergies. Right. And I know that's overused, but it's really truly what happens, because if you have your marketing department working on one thing and then you have your purchasing department working on another thing, there might be some things that they're working on that when you combine them, you actually create very unique value out of that you might not have had visibility to, where a center of excellence would actually expose that and say, hey, what if? And you combine those efforts together and you actually transform and you get ahead of the curve versus your competitors. And that's the real value in having a singular area that can integrate all of these capabilities.
Oh, I love it. And my experience with an Insight was exactly that. I mean, that was, again, something that's kind of fulfilling. We don't get those moments, again, very often. And there goes my passion again. Sorry, Carm. But it is a really exciting thing. And when you do it like that, Juan, to your point, and you find these things that you wouldn't have found if everybody was still sitting in their day job, working on the same stuff that they've always worked on, it's really gratifying. I mean, so this is an opportunity, again, transformation is a strong word, but I really agree. This is an opportunity for organizations to transform, rallying around a technology that can take their business to a place that, honestly, they have to go now because other people are going to take advantage of this, and everybody's got to play this game. So I think, and wow, we always shoot for 20 minutes plus on this, and I think we could probably go another hour, but I do want to kind of wrap up, but I think a really good conversation. So you guys, working the way that you work, NVIDIA and Insight together, you also know the vision of where we're going. So give me an idea of kind of what's on the horizon, even though, I mean, we already got a magic lamp and as many wishes as we want to come up with cool stuff right now. Where are we going to?
Matt, that's loaded.
Yeah.
I'll go if you want. So I think we're really on the precipice, and Juan mentioned this earlier. I do think that there's a lot, the game is changing, and this is really an exciting time to be in this field, because our capabilities are sort of growing by leaps and bounds, and it will continue. I think it's interesting because I teach a course in blockchain and financial markets and cryptocurrency, and it was sort of this game-changing model that was associated with the fact that we could go with point-to-point cryptocurrency models for all transactions. But then all of a sudden regulation kind of crept in, and privacy and security, and it really sort of changed the model pretty, drastically. I think there's a little bit of that as well. So I think some of the excitement will be quelled a little bit as we think about where we can go. But I just think that our ability to be able to leverage this in order to learn more, learn faster, leverage existing capabilities, and sort of augment our own human intelligence, that is where I think we're going. Like even personal assistants, work assistants, etc. I think that it's really unlimited in terms of applicability, and it will continue to advance, I think, over time. So it's not to be too much of a prognosticator for the future, but I really do feel like as Juan said, things do change. Things will change drastically for us and how we think about use cases.
Well, you know what, Carm, I love what you said. I'm going to put it in a slightly different way because it's going to address something else that's come up in a lot of the conversations I've been part of. And that's that people are afraid that these AI things are going to take their job. And that's not at all what's going to happen. All right. AI by itself is not going to take the jobs of most people. All right. What is going to take your job is the individual that knows how to use these tools better than you. So my advice and my prediction is that we all have to learn how to use these tools to whatever extent makes sense for our jobs. And if we can learn those quicker than your competitors, you are going to do better than them. And so go learn, go spend time, happy to help. And that's probably the right way to think about this is use them as tools. They're fantastic, innovative tools. Future's bright and awesome. Go learn.
Couldn't agree more. You guys said it very, very well. Applications are ubiquitous, every single industry, a lot to benefit from, as is typical with every one of these groundbreaking technologies, the internet, the iPhone. There's a lot of FUD out there, a lot of concern, but think about all the goodness, right? Cancer detection. You think about safety, you think about how this thing can truly improve lives, give more time back to us to spend time with our families. The technology is incredible. It's real. It's here now. Please reach out. We can help you. We have the entire platform together with Insight to do this any way you want, anywhere you want, the edge all the way back to the cloud. And we're doing this every single day, helping customers get started, helping them on their AI journey, and then making sure that they have a very successful journey going forward.
Thanks, Matt. And yeah, you guys got me super excited. I know we're going to have to talk more about this, so get used to this conversation. I think it's great. Just like everything we kind of talk about, though, that thoughtful approach that includes the entire organization, that includes the legal aspects, all of those things, when they come together, are going to catapult people, regardless. But I think leveraging this technology is something that business leaders out there cannot overlook. And you're not so far behind the game right now with the capabilities that are provided through these platforms that you can still be in this. So that's what I would say. You're not out of this. You're not left behind. You can keep rolling. And again, we've got experts that can talk to you about any of this stuff and help you figure out a solution. So thanks, Matt. Thanks, NVIDIA, for being with us today. Carm and Juan, you guys are always awesome, and we love having you. So if you want to know more about what we do at Insight, please visit us at solutions.insight.com. And thanks for watching.